The morning I almost signed away everything my grandmother left me, a stranger grabbed my wrist and said, "Don't go in there yet, please. I need 2 minutes of your time." I almost pulled away. I was already running late, my coffee was cold, and I had been waiting 3 months for this appointment. 3 months of phone calls, of paperwork, of my cousin Daniel telling me to be patient, that these things take time, that everything was almost ready. I was not in the mood for 2 minutes. I was not in the mood for anything except sitting down at that conference table, signing my name, and finally having something that was mine. But something about the way she said, "Please," stopped me. She was maybe a few years older than me, early 40s, wearing a navy blazer with the bank's logo stitched on the breast pocket. Her name tag said Renee. Her hands were shaking slightly, just enough that I noticed, and her eyes kept cutting to the glass door behind me, the one that led to the private conference rooms at the back of Heritage First Bank on Caldwell Street. "I'm sorry," she said, lowering her voice. "I know how this looks. I know you don't know me. But I have seen this exact situation before, and I cannot, in good conscience, let you walk in there without knowing what I know. Can we please step around the corner for just a moment? My name is Maya Holloway. I am 37 years old. I am a registered nurse. I have been one for 12 years. And I would like to think that after 12 years of reading people of knowing when someone is about to crash, when someone is hiding pain, when someone is genuinely scared, I have a reasonable instinct about human beings. And what I felt, standing in that lobby, looking at this woman I had never met in my life, was that she was not performing anything. She was terrified. I followed her around the corner to a small alcove near the safe deposit boxes, out of view from the conference rooms. "My name is Renee Carter," she said. "I have worked at this branch for 9 years. I am telling you what I am about to tell you because 6 months ago I did not tell someone, and I have regretted it every single day since then." She paused. "Who set up this appointment for you?" "My cousin," I said. "Daniel Holloway, and an attorney named Marcus Webb. It's about my grandmother's estate. She passed in November." She closed her eyes for just a second. "Is this the first time you're meeting Marcus Webb in person?" "Yes. Daniel has been handling everything. I live in Charlotte. Daniel is here in Atlanta, so he's been coordinating." "Maya." She said my name, even though I had not told it to her, and I felt the hair on my arm stand up. "Your name is on the account, isn't it? Your grandmother had an account here." "How do you know my name?" "Because Marcus Webb has been in this branch twice in the last 6 weeks, and both times he used your name. He was asking questions about the account, about whether there were any holds, whether the balance was accessible, whether a transfer had been flagged." She looked at me steadily. "I reported it to my manager both times. I was told it was standard estate process. But yesterday afternoon, the same man came in with someone I did not recognize, and they spent 40 minutes in conference room 3. I walked past the door, and I heard your name again. And the number," she paused, $240,000. My grandmother's house on Peachtree Lane had sold 6 weeks after she died. The proceeds, along with her savings, came to roughly $242,000. I knew this because Daniel had emailed me the estate accounting in December. He said everything was being held in a custodial account at Heritage First, and that once probate cleared, I would come in, sign the transfer documents, and the money would move into my personal account. That was the plan. That had always been the plan. "What exactly are you saying?" I asked, though I think some part of me already knew. "I'm saying I don't believe you're walking into that room to receive money," Renee said. "I think you're walking in to sign it away." I want to explain something about my grandmother, because none of the rest of this makes any sense without understanding who Evelyn Holloway was to me. My mother left when I was 9. She did not leave dramatically, no fight, no explanation, no goodbye. She was there on a Tuesday and gone by Thursday, and my grandmother was the one who sat on the edge of my bed that first night and said, "I have you. You hear me? I have you, and I am not going anywhere." And she never did. For 28 years, until the morning in November when I got the call that she had passed quietly in her sleep, she never once went anywhere. She worked as a seamstress for most of her life. She repaired formal wear, did alterations, made bridesmaid dresses from patterns she kept in a binder with a broken spine. She was not a wealthy woman, but she was a disciplined one, and she had spent decades putting money into that account, dollar by dollar, refusal by refusal, saying no to things so that one day she could say yes to something for me. The house on Peachtree Lane had been in her name since 1987. Daniel was her grandson too, her son, Raymond's boy. We had grown up in the same family but not the same house, and as adults we were cordial without being close. When my grandmother passed, it was Daniel who stepped in and said he would handle the estate because he was local and had the time. I was grateful. I was working nights at the hospital. I was grieving, and I trusted him because he was family, because it never occurred to me that someone would look at their grandmother's life savings and decide it was theirs to take. I stood in that alcove and I breathed. "How sure are you?" I asked Renee. "I'm not a lawyer," she said. "I can't tell you exactly what the documents say, but I can tell you that man has been in and out of this branch with paperwork relating to your grandmother's account, and you were not with him. And I can tell you that the woman I did not say something to 6 months ago, her name was Patricia. She came in to sign estate documents, just like you. She left having signed over power of attorney to an attorney she had never met in person. She lost everything in her mother's estate. By the time she realized what had happened, the money was already moved. We never recovered it." She pressed her lips together. "I'm not going to let that happen to you if I can help it. Is there any way to see what's actually in those documents before I go in there? Not without arousing suspicion." But she paused. "Do you have your phone?" "With a camera?" I did. "Whatever they put in front of you, you have the right to read it. Take your time, every page, and if anything doesn't look right, if the account number is different, if there's a power of attorney clause, if it transfers anything to a third party, you photograph it before you sign a single thing. You tell them you want to review it with your own attorney. They cannot legally force you to sign in that room." I nodded. My hands felt very steady, which surprised me. I think the shock had not fully landed yet, or maybe 12 years of nursing had trained me to be calm precisely in the moments when calmness costs the most. "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me yet," she said. "Go." Conference room 3 had a long mahogany table and 2 men sitting on one side of it. Daniel stood when I came in, smiling, gesturing to the chair across from him like he was doing me a favor. The man beside him was Marcus Webb, mid-50s, a slim gray suit, a smile that sat a little too comfortably on his face. He had the kind of handshake that communicates authority without earning it. "Maya, finally," Daniel said. "You look tired. Long drive?" 4 hours, I said. "I'm fine." Marcus slid a folder across the table. "Everything is in order. We have the transfer authorization, the estate closure documents, and the release of the custodial account. Once you sign and we file the closure, the funds will clear into your account within 3 to 5 business days." I opened the folder. I am a slow reader by nature. I always have been. Even before nursing school trained me to read every label twice, and I read that folder the way I read medication orders, line by line. I did not rush, and I did not apologize for not rushing. Even when I felt Marcus shift in his seat and Daniel say, "It's pretty standard stuff, Maya. I've already reviewed everything." "I'd like to review it myself," I said pleasantly. On page 3, I found it. It was a single clause, 4 lines long, embedded in a paragraph about estate disbursement. It authorized the release of all custodial funds held under the estate of Evelyn Ruth Holloway to an account ending in 7,742. My personal account, the one my grandmother's money was supposed to transfer into, ended in 3,391. Account 7,742 meant nothing to me. I kept my face completely neutral. I kept reading. On page 6, there was a line I had to read 3 times before I understood what it meant. A signature block not just for me, but for authorized estate co-administrator Daniel R. Holloway, granting him ongoing access to any accounts associated with the estate. I turned to page 8. I photographed it with my phone in my lap, angled up, the way Renee had shown me. I turned the page slowly, as if still reading, and photographed page 6 the same way. Then page 3. "Everything okay?" Marcus asked. "Almost done," I said. There is something I have to tell you about that moment, because it is the part I find hardest to explain even now. Sitting across from my cousin Daniel, a man I had eaten Christmas dinner with, a man whose children I had held as babies, and understanding what he was doing, what he had been planning for months while I was grieving and trusting him, and saying thank you for all his help. That particular kind of understanding does something to you that has no clean name. It is not quite rage, and it is not quite grief, and it is not quite the cold, flat feeling of betrayal. It is all of those things happening in your chest simultaneously, and you have to sit still and let them, because you cannot let the men across the table see your face change. I set the folder down. I'd like to take this home and review it with my own attorney before I sign, I said. I'm not comfortable signing today. Daniel's smile dropped for just a fraction of a second before he put it back. Maya, we've been working toward this date for 3 months. Marcus has other clients. The account needs to be. I understand, I said. And I appreciate everyone's time, but I'm not signing today. Marcus placed both palms flat on the table, a gesture designed to communicate reason and patience. Miss Holloway, I want to assure you that every document in that folder has been prepared in full accordance with Georgia probate law. Then it will still be in full accordance next week, I said. I'll be in touch. I picked up my purse. I walked out of conference room 3. I walked past the teller windows and out through the main doors of Heritage First Bank, and I sat in my rental car in the parking lot, and I called my own attorney, a woman named Judith Park, who had handled my lease dispute 2 years ago, and I told her what I had. I told her about the account number discrepancy, the co-administrator clause, the photographs. She told me not to go back to that bank, not to respond to Daniel or Marcus Webb, and to send her everything I had photographed within the hour. Then I went back inside. Renee was at her window. I caught her eye and I gave her a single small nod. She exhaled like she had been holding her breath for an hour. What Judith found when she looked at those documents took my breath away, not because it was complicated, but because it was so deliberate. Account 7742 belonged to a holding company called MW Consulting LLC. Marcus Webb was the registered agent. The company had been incorporated 14 months earlier, 2 months before my grandmother was even diagnosed with the illness that eventually took her. Daniel had known she was sick before most of the family did. He had visited her regularly in those last months. We had all thought he was being attentive. We had all said how good it was that he was there. Judith filed a complaint with the Georgia State Bar within 48 hours of receiving my photographs. She contacted the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. She reached out to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation because Marcus Webb, it turned out, was not just working with Daniel. Over the course of the next 3 weeks, investigators identified 4 other estates where Marcus Webb had been involved as the attorney of record. In 2 of those cases, the money had already been moved. In the other 2, it had not, and those families were alerted in time. I did not feel triumphant when I learned this. I felt sick. I thought about Patricia, the woman Renee had mentioned, the one she hadn't warned in time. I asked Judith if there was any way to include her situation in what was being built. Judith said they were looking into it. Let me tell you about the part that still makes me cry, even now, even knowing how everything ended. 3 weeks into the investigation, Judith called me on a Tuesday evening and said that Daniel had been formally arrested that afternoon. Conspiracy to commit estate fraud, wire fraud, financial exploitation of an elder. Marcus Webb was arrested the same morning at his office on Peachtree Road, 2 miles from the bank where he had been walking in and out for 6 weeks with my dead grandmother's name in his mouth. I sat on my couch in Charlotte, and I stared at my phone for a long time after that call. I thought about my grandmother's hands. She had seamstress hands, strong, precise, a little rough at the knuckles from decades of pins and needles and thread. I thought about what those hands had built, dollar by dollar, refusal by refusal, all those years. I thought about her sitting at her kitchen table and writing that number in her savings book, that small ritual she performed every month, the discipline of it, the love underneath the discipline. She had not built that for Daniel. She had not built it for Marcus Webb or MW Consulting LLC or anyone else who wanted to take it. She had built it for me. And she trusted family to make sure it got there. The trial took 9 months. I will not make you sit through all of it. But there are a few things that matter. The photographs I took in Conference Room 3 were admitted as evidence. Marcus Webb's attorney argued that I had no standing to photograph documents in a private meeting. The judge disagreed. Those 4 photographs, page 3, page 6, page 8, and one I had taken almost as an afterthought of the cover sheet, with both Daniel's and Marcus's signatures, formed the core of what the DA presented to the jury. Renee Carter testified. She sat in that witness box and she told the court about Patricia, about the 2 times she had flagged Marcus Webb's behavior to her manager and been dismissed, about the moment she made a different choice with me. She was calm and clear and exact, and there was one moment near the end of her testimony where the DA asked her why she had approached me, a stranger, in the lobby of her bank, and she said, "Because I knew what it looked like when someone was about to lose something that wasn't theirs to lose, and I decided that doing nothing was also a choice, and I was not willing to make that choice again." There was not a sound in that courtroom. Daniel was sentenced to 11 years. Marcus Webb received 14, with an additional 5-year sentence enhancement for targeting elderly victims. The judge, in her sentencing remarks, noted that the deliberate nature of the scheme, the 14 months of preparation, the exploitation of a grieving family, the use of forged documentation warranted the maximum available sentence under Georgia law. She said it plainly and without drama, the way sentences like that deserve to be said. The full $242,000 was returned to my account 4 months after sentencing. All of it. The court ordered complete restitution, and because Marcus Webb and Daniel had not yet moved the money when the investigation began, it was actually recoverable. I want to be specific about that because it matters. Every dollar my grandmother saved came back. I went back to Heritage First Bank 2 weeks after the sentencing. I did not have any banking business there. I went because Renee Carter still worked at that branch, and I wanted to see her in person. She was at her window when I came in. She looked up and she smiled, and it was a different kind of smile than the one you give a customer. It was the smile of someone who made a hard choice and found out it was the right one. We had coffee in the lobby on her break. She told me that after her testimony, several people in the financial industry had reached out a consumer protection nonprofit, a law school clinic that worked on elder financial exploitation cases. She was considering going to work for one of them. She said she thought she might be more useful there than behind a teller window. "How is Patricia?" I asked. Her expression shifted. "She's okay. She's fighting to recover some of what she lost through civil litigation. It's slow." She paused. "I think about her all the time. I think about what I should have done differently." "You did the right thing when it counted," I said. "I did the right thing the second time," she said. "That's not the same thing." I did not argue with her, because she was right. And she knew that, and I thought maybe part of healing from something like that is being allowed to sit with the weight of it honestly, rather than having it taken away from you before you're ready. We sat there for a while longer, and I told her about my grandmother, about the seamstress hands and the savings book and the kitchen table. I told her about the apartment I was saving up to buy in Charlotte, the down payment I had been building toward for 6 years, and how my grandmother's inheritance was going to make it possible. I told her I had already made an offer and it had been accepted and I was closing in 30 days. Renee smiled. "She would be happy about that," she said. "I know I didn't know her, but from everything you've said, she would be happy about that. There are things I want you to take from this story, if you are willing to hear them. The first is about strangers. I know we are taught to be careful. I know we are taught that people who approach us with urgent warnings in bank lobbies are not to be trusted. I know all of that. And I am telling you that the woman who saved my inheritance was someone I had never seen before in my life and will probably never fully be able to repay. Sometimes the person who sees what's happening is not the person you would expect. Sometimes they are shaking a little and their eyes keep cutting to a door and they say, 'Please,' in a way that you recognize as real. Pay attention. The second thing is about documents. I do not care how much you trust the person across the table. I do not care if they are family, if they have known you since you were a child, if they showed up every Sunday for the last 6 months of your grandmother's life with flowers. You read every page. You read the account numbers. You look up words you don't understand. You take every document home if you need to, And if someone tells you that there isn't time, that is information, because legitimate transactions can wait for you to protect yourself and illegitimate ones cannot. The third thing is the one I think about the most. My grandmother spent her whole life building something for me. She did it quietly, without fanfare, without asking for credit or gratitude, because that is the kind of love that doesn't need an audience. She trusted that what she built would reach me. It almost didn't. It came within a signature of disappearing entirely. It came back to me because a woman I didn't know decided that silence was also a choice, and she was not willing to make it twice. I close on my apartment in 27 days. The kitchen has a window that faces east, and in the morning the light comes in at an angle that makes the whole room look gold. The first thing I am going to put in that kitchen is a small, framed photograph of my grandmother's hands. I have one taken at Christmas when she was teaching my cousin's daughter to thread a needle, her fingers steady and certain, doing what they had always known how to do. Those hands built my home. I will not forget it.